pull this middle drive gear in this yoke set. And what we're going to do here, if you watch my other videos on removing a U-joint, is take a smaller screwdriver. We're going to pull the yoke that's attached to the motor. So if you're replacing a U-joint, you'll pull both of the yokes. In this case, we're just trying to remove it off of the motor. So I find the keeper here. I just tap that out. Now, a lot of times it can spin and it'll just spin all the way around this cap here. Take two screwdrivers, same length, tap one on each side, put one on each side of that clip, and punch down with your hammer on an equal size screwdriver. In this case, popped out enough to where we can get that screwdriver in behind it, kind of pry it out. And make sure that it doesn't go flying. These are kind of spring loaded, so they tend to do that. So one clip's out, we'll flip it, do the other side here. And this one you can see is rusty. That can be a challenge, but also sometimes not a big deal. So that clip is just about off of there. Again, watch your clip from going flying. Good idea to wear safety protection on your eyes. That way clip doesn't hit you. So once we get those clips out, then what we're going to do is take and tap down on the U-joint. Or on the yoke. You can see there that taking that cap and pushing it out of there. We'll take and put a little WD-40 on there, kind of loosen things up. It'll come at some point just because of starting. Starting is the main part of it, and they both started, but just to make our lives a little bit easier, we'll go ahead and put some WD-40 on there. Sometimes that helps loosen it up. These are all steel, so they're hard to, you'll ding these up, but you probably won't ruin them. Kind of go back and forth here. So you can see there the caps are moving. And once they start moving, they really start going quick. Now keep those, if we're putting that U-joint back in, which I don't suggest, U-joints are cheap. You want to make sure you keep all those needles, but like I said, I don't suggest reusing them. But if you're in a pinch, you can. They're $20 from different good aftermarket companies. I would just suggest replacing them. So once we get that off, then we're able to put a socket in there and remove this other yoke. Looks like it's going to be a 22 millimeter socket. And you can pull this middle drive gear without pulling this yoke. So we're kind of doing an extra step here because we do want this yoke off of here. 22 regular threaded. There we go, there's your U-joint there. And your yoke set. That's your rear output yoke set. So next we'll go ahead and pull these Allens here. We've got 5 millimeter, 6 5 millimeter Allens that we'll pull on this side. This is for that cover. But before that cover will come off, I'll show you what we've got to do. So don't go nuts and hitting it with a hammer trying to get it off of there. You'll break something because we've got more bolts we have to take out before that cover will come off. So once we get these removed here, and check out my other videos for a full oil change on the Yamaha Big Bear 350 and that'll explain what we've got to do with this middle drive gear, changing that oil, draining it, getting new fluid in there, how much we need, and how you go about doing that and checking it. So got 6 5mm bolts here we just removed. Now we will take and pull these 4 bolts. Now if you're just removing this cover here, all you need to do is 2, but just as easy, remove all 4. And this is an aluminum housing, so be really careful when you're tapping on it not to damage it. So once you get the last one loosened, that'll pull right out. Now this will just slide right off of there. This right here, again, is aluminum. This is kind of a spacer. Be awful careful with that. You want that to seal, so don't gouge it with a screwdriver or anything. Okay, there's your middle drive gear. And that's your output for your front and your rear. So next, here's this adapter plate here. Or this is your cover. This is your plate here. And then this is your bevel gear. Now these gears you want to replace together as a set. Don't just replace one of them. So we've got your gear here. And this gear is a bevel gear because it's switching from all your gears going, you know, sideways, now going backwards. So we'll go ahead and pull this. And that's sometimes a little bit challenging just because of not having a good grip on it. If you've got an electric impact or an air impact, that's the best way of doing it. And also strong fingers. But you want to be careful too doing it that way. And if you use pliers, which we may end up having to do depending on how tight this is, you want to make sure you got a good strong hold on it. It's a challenge to do without pliers. And because of the way that they dent this nut in there, makes it a little more challenging. You can try to straighten it out. Sometimes it makes it worse. But they flatten this nut so that it doesn't come loose during use. And we'll try it this way. May not make it better, but it may.